Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Today's episode and the first episode after the Olympics kicking off is certainly not what I had on my bingo card. I did draw a lot of ideas that I thought were going to be big talking points at this Olympics, and none of them were this anything related to what we're going to be talking about today after the Canadian women's national team has been caught in a bit of a scandal. To talk a little bit more about what is happening, what has happened, what does this mean for the program, what does this mean for Bev Priestman, what does this mean for the entirety of the Canadian women's national team, I'm joined by my good friend AC Lang here today. AC, thank you so much for joining me. I do have to ask a very painful question because you have covered this team for a very long time and you're also a big fan of this team, like many of us who talk and cover the team. How devastating is this news?
Yeah, this is like the worst day in a long time for me. I think for
Yeah.
a lot of Canadian soccer fans. I mean, I guess the last couple of days, but I think it really culminates in, Bev Priestman getting fired or suspended today. But yeah, this is a really, really terrible day, and it really paints the whole organization in such a terrible light. And so this is the worst. I hate it. I hate it so much.
It has been a very ugly last few days, and certainly kind of today, Thursday, July 25th, the time of the recording, it was the big nail on the head. And to recap for those who aren't aware exactly what is going on Tuesday, the 22nd, New Zealand Olympic Committee filed an integrity report after spotting a drone ahead of their training session that was intercepted and pinned back to a Canada Soccer staff member who was operating the drone. It was later confirmed that it was unaccredited analyst Joe Lombardi who was behind the drone, who reports to assistant coach Jasmine Mander, who is pretty much, you could say, Bev Priestman's right hand when it comes to the coaching of the senior women's national team. Both of the assistant coaches have been interviewed by the police, and obviously Lombardi faces more than just the spying breach, but also legal consequences by flying and operating a drone in a prohibited airspace. Both of the assistant coaches have been sent home. There's fines. Loading for Lombardi, Bev Priestman withdrew and voluntarily withdrew herself from managing the team against New Zealand. The game concluded in a 2-1 victory for Canada over New Zealand. Priestman was not, as far as to what we've been told, on the premise or the stadium. We were told she's in the hotel, but I think she must have been on a plane because Canada Soccer has suspended her and from the Olympics and obviously any duties that she would be doing, and she's sent back home. Andy Spencer, one of the assistant coaches, will be taking over for whatever is the remainder of this Olympics. And so this is where we currently stand. Rick Westhead of TSN has just published quite a damning report highlighting sources that are speaking to the drone and the spying practice being a very common practice with this senior Canadian women's national team as well as the men's national team. There's been sources that confirmed to TSN that the team spied and operated drones ahead or on top of Japan's training sessions in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. They also did so against three other opponents in 2022, including Costa Rica. This is not just a one-time thing against New Zealand. This is a clear practice that's been happening for many, many years. Bev Priestman is been with the team around those years that a lot of this news is coming out with. AC, my question is kind of around, does this surprise you that we're learning news that perhaps this is something that has been happening for much longer than we anticipated?
No, no, it doesn't surprise me. I think as soon as this got caught and pinned to Lombardi and the coaching staff, it was pretty clear that people were going to start digging. And there's enough people within the Canadian soccer environment or sphere that are perpetually mad at the federation or have some kind of agenda. And so I'm not saying that this was necessarily the case, but there's certainly people willing to speak to practices that were offside. And I think after the comments Herdman made about the drones when they were used in Canada spying on the Honduras men's team, kind of like shrugging it off, like, yeah, lots of people use drones in Canada. Honduras is a big team. Yeah, maybe they were curious, and kind of shrugging that off. Maybe that was the first red flag that we all kind of ignore it. And I think this kind of calls into question a lot of what John Herdman was doing even over the years. And we all know Bev Priestman is a product of John Herdman. He brought her on. She kind of grew into the coaching role alongside him. And so, yeah, it's not super surprising that they dug into it, and it's not super surprising that it was relatively easy to find information about what seems to be like a pretty damning report of the culture among the staff.
Yeah, let's talk about that culture of the staff because it feels like the initial question was, has Bev Priestman lost her staff, and is there distrust between the staff members? And clearly it's more than just a lack of trust. What does this tell us about the culture of the federation, the culture of the staff, and specifically the staff that has been through the battles against the federation? This is both Lombardi and Mander, the two assistant coaches that were dismissed, were with the team at the World Cup. They know exactly what extra noise means and what it does to the players. And unfortunately, it's kind of been pinned on the fact that they instigated this and they perpetrated this extra noise. What does this speak about this culture of this federation?
Yeah, I mean, like they've been doing work on the federation side, on the board, on the executive side. The president is new. Like we knew that there was problems within Canada soccer. I've received multiple messages from people saying there are clear ethics problems all across the federation. And so I think to this specific instance, like yes, Mander and Lombardi are taking the fall for this. That feels a little bit unfair because this seems to have been common practice. It's not just Lombardi who flew this drone every time. I'm sure many people were involved. Actually, the article said that at least two people, were actually operating the drone in the past. So it's really, yeah, it's a shock to see these people take the fall for it. It was really telling kind of Bev's response because she never really did deny knowing about what was going on, right? And so, yeah, Lombardi is one of the most respected people in Canadian soccer, like full stop. He is the head coach of our national development program, the Ontario division of the national development program. He is the reigning League One Ontario Coach of the Year. He's been on the national team staff, youth national team staff. He's run major youth clubs within the country. He is literally one of the best technical leaders we have in Canada. And from everything I hear, he's a stand up guy. And so, how was he put in the position to operate this drone? Was it solely his idea or Mander's idea? I don't think so, right? So, I think the culture very much is implicated and needs to be investigated and probably overturned. But the unfortunate thing is that this is common practice.
And just to highlight as well, in the TSN report, it does mention that there's been contractors that denied wanting to operate a drone in an attempt to spy and have been sent home. And there's other sources that have said that this was part of the job in signing up. So certainly there's more questions of how much of this was instigated by the two assistant coaches that were dismissed. And, the head coach on top of this is Bev Priestman. She was the coach when the spying allegations are coming out in Tokyo. She was the coach when all these spying allegations are coming out. And again, it was like, is she implicit? Is she not implicit? I think it's very hard to clear her name now because I'm not sure how you would clear your name. Why would Priestman do such thing and risk such thing for her coaching career for this program, and and just be so reckless for so many years and think that she wouldn't get caught or her staff wouldn't get caught?
I mean, maybe that speaks to the larger culture of high performance sport. And I think we kind of have this picture of, the Olympics, elite sport as like moral and dignified and like the spirit of competition and fairness, when in reality, you don't need to look far to see that that's not necessarily the case, that cheating can absolutely be rampant. We are not the first country to use a drone. We will not be the last, but certainly this is going to be used as a precedent and as like, I guess, and we're going to be made an example, I think, and probably rightfully so. But it's really, really unfortunate that this is going to taint the player's legacy. I mean, I don't care that much about Bev's legacy right now.
Mhm.
Um, there is no coming back from this, at least not in Canada. Maybe if she leaves, lays low somewhere for a while. But like the thing is, she has built the youth systems in our country. She was a youth national team coach. She has brought up a lot of the coaches around her. She's lifted people like Jasmine Mander up. Her wife coaches in the youth national team system as well. And so I think anyone associated with Bev Priestman at this time is going to have like some trouble and is going to be on the chopping block. I think there's going to be a huge overhaul of all of the staff.
Yeah, I think the implication now is not the fact that Bev Priestman was a head coach that was recruited from outside and brought in. Like you mentioned, she has gone through the ranks. She's been with this program for over 10 years. I mean, if you're thinking about the amount of coaches that she's worked with, it's a ton, it's a lot of people. And I think this is what the investigations have to uncover now. I'm glad you brought up the player's legacy because now Tokyo 2021 and the gold medal is in question. And I think that is extremely painful, and the possibility of, I mean, not even the possibility of the gold medal being revoked, but now that these gold Olympian medalists are going to be called cheaters and their medal will be called a fraud or a fluke or whatever other derogatory term that could be used here. Tokyo 2021, what does it mean now in this program that was supposedly a huge turning point for the country?
Yeah, I mean, people were already calling it fluke before this even happened. So things are only going to get worse with this. Like, I'm so angry that Christine Sinclair's gold medal is going to be tainted by this because, dear God, that woman has worked tirelessly for so long. And then for something like this, after the fact, she's not even here anymore. Like, she's just trying to enjoy retirement. And then this comes out. Like, I am absolutely appalled by it. I am so sad for the players who they just seem betrayed. Like I'm sure you saw Jesse and Vanessa and Ev's comments. Like they that's the ultimate betrayal of trust. Like you have implicit trust in your coach that they are being ethical, that they are living these values. I mean, like they put these values up on the projector and they have all like that's their motto, right? And so for them to say one thing and then completely act another way, it's like absolutely, yeah, the trust is gone. I'm so upset.
Yeah, it's this set of Canadian players, this core group that the team has now, but also, I mean, you can say every player that's been in the program for the past 4 years, they've been consistently let down. And I think this probably hurts most because they've been let down by those closest to them. It's the coaching staff that gets them prepared for matches. It's the coaching staff that they feel trust in talking to about their performance and talking to about things outside of their performance. It's a coaching staff that supposedly motivated them and wanted to live out these values and mottos. And for reference, for anybody who's ever heard Beth Priestman speak, she is always about values. And I mean, she's also joined me on my pod here to talk about the Olympics and the World Cup, and a lot of her talk was about the values, which I mean, you can just bin it all completely. Can the players recover from this Olympics? Because I personally find it very difficult, but you've also highlighted that the players now are playing for themselves. That rift between themselves and the coaching staff is already tarnished.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really interesting moving forward, how the team responds. I mean, I'm just going to read Vanessa Gilles' quote. She opens with, "We are not cheaters." No, you're not. Your staff is because they're idiots. Honestly, it was not easy. There was a lot of emotion, frustration, and humiliation. Humiliation. Everyone in Canada is humiliated because as a player, it does not reflect our values and what we want to represent as a competitor at the Olympics. It's something that will follow us for a long time. It's disappointing, but it's up to us to stay united and try not to let social networks and media enter our bubble. We have already been able to do this in the past. So I think that does speak to the resilience that they've had to show, in the past 2-3 years. We can talk about the committee hearings. We can talk about She Believes Cup. We can talk about any of those things. And so I'm really happy that Desiree Scott is there in this moment. I think that is actually going to be a crucial person to help, keep the team together. And it's really interesting to see kind of how Jesse responded today as well in the interview and on the field. And so this is going to be the biggest challenge of her young captaincy so far. So we'll see how she does, how the leadership group kind of pushes them through. But yeah, I just hope that they can kind of stay out of it because this is a mess.
This is a mess, and that's a very nice way of describing what of a shit show this is in the Federation. And I think when we look at this team, like I mentioned, it's a group that has had to fight through a lot of battles, a lot of resilient showings, a lot of statements. Um, and I'm honestly, I think the first thing that was brought to mind is that does this discourage youth players from wanting to become senior players? Because what these 17-year-olds have seen is probably the last 10 years of federation fights with these players. And if it's not a federation fight, it is clearly the coaches that lets them down. Like, how much does this actually affect aspiring youth wanting to play for this team, um, in terms of them wanting to explore other options or wanting to explore other citizenships? I mean, Canadians come from various diverse backgrounds. A lot of people can be dual citizenships at some point. But how does this affect youth and players wanting to represent this team that somehow was always in a bit of a mess?
Yeah, I mean, they're like, this is embarrassing, right? This is humiliating. Why at this point would you want to put that crest on? I'm sure that like every young kid out there is feeling so confused because their coaches tell them every day about these values, integrity, work hard, teamwork, honesty, like, and that's all. And then you see it, the highest level of your national team fail at such a grand scale. And then I also thought about, think about how our national teams in the Olympics have ignited a wave of passion and really gotten a lot of kids, a lot of young girls in the game. Like I'm thinking specifically the 2012 generation. I think the 95s that are now kind of like, Sheridan, Lawrence, Buchanan, etc., Quinn, they've all kind of openly said that the 2012 generation really motivated them and, got them kind of more engaged and they wanted to get on that podium as well. Similar with the 2016s and like the Jordan Heidema Grosso year, Jade Revere. And so there was that kind of like this really beautiful cycle of players being encouraged and inspired by these amazing results. And then like, what are we going to have this year? Nothing. Like this is so embarrassing. This is so bad. And then take in that all of the elite players in our country have been coached by one of these individuals in the last 2 to 3 years. Like, what are they thinking? Like, this is just such a mess.
It's a mess that extends to everybody. Shireen Ahmed has also on her Twitter mentioned that her thoughts also are with the families and the friends of these players. And when we see a lot of their families on social media, they could be more proud that their kids represent Canada. And I've had the privilege of speaking to some, and the way they talk about how proud they are of their daughters that represent this crest, it's through the roof. And to now feel like their money spent taking their kids left and right to training camps and pushing them at their lowest points to go to international camp only for it to end where their kids are being called cheaters. I can't imagine what that even is to deal with. This is not just a Canada soccer scandal. This is not just a Canadian women's national team scandal. This is a women's sports, women's soccer scandal. What is it? Do you think that this kind of, I guess, initiates other similar scandals being highlighted? Is this going to send a reminder to those operating a drone to not operate a drone? What does this mean in terms of women's sports, which also, not to mention that women's sports is all about integrity and being honest and representing all the good things in sports, and this represents nothing good in sports.
Yeah, women's athletes are role models, right? More so than men sometimes. But this is going to slot in like the history of, maybe I'm being hyperbolic, but like sports scandals, Olympic scandals. Like we have a couple of those examples even in Canada.
Mm.
Obviously, there's doping scandals all the time. There's cheating scandals all the time. But I think this actually will slot in with that because everyone is talking about it already, and people that have never covered soccer before are already getting in on this. And yeah, it's on the front like headline in the news. Like this is really, really bad. It's really historically bad. And then in terms of does this discourage cheating? Cheating and high performance sport seem to go hand in hand.
Yep, they're like besties.
They are besties, right? So you're never going to prevent cheating, but certainly everyone out there is dumping their drones as we speak. Like, any, yeah, any federation that uses a drone in the next like year or so, I have questions why. But yeah, I mean, cheating is always going to be part of it. But I'd hate the excuse that everyone does it. Like,
No.
no, we did a wrong thing. Don't say everyone cheats when you do a wrong thing. Own up to it. And I think Bev in this case, like, really is not owning up to it and kind of letting Joey Lombardi take the fall for it.
Yep.
Like, in my honest opinion, like, there's no way a head coach does not know where the footage is coming.
Yeah, no, it's I mean, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if it's a drone that flew on your opposition's pitch, then it is cheating and it is spying. And sure, this may be happening with their opposition, but it doesn't mean that they have to do it. And I mean too, I think Canada is one of the first to be caught because they're not good at cheating. It's like when your teachers tell you if you want to lie, make sure you're a good liar. And it's
Did
kind
your
of like,
teachers tell you that?
well,
Jeez.
did I just throw somebody under the bus here?
Yeah.
A tough one to answer now because there's still plenty investigations going on, actually, including Canada Soccer's own investigations with that, I mean, raises its own questions because, I mean, are they investigating their own ethics, which need to be completely overhauled? But how does this program progress and how much of a cleanup in the house do we need to see where the national team and the federation can actually kind of attempt to start from scratch?
Yeah, I mean, the Federation is not a stranger to investigating itself at this point. I think you'll recall the numerous reports and how enraging they were to read. I mean, we're like quadruple reporting slash investigations right now, right? Like IOC, COC,
FIFA.
FIFA, Canada Soccer, anyone else want to join? Like, I guess the French police. But yeah, it's so I guess we have to await the results of the investigations. I think Bev will probably be fired,
Yeah.
in the coming weeks, feels like.
Hmm.
How I think now it's just a matter of getting through the Olympics and then regrouping. I don't know if they're gonna book fall friendlies at this rate. But I honestly don't really know what the path forward looks like because the trouble with Canada soccer is that the soccer community in Canada feels pretty small sometimes. Like the people that are at the top and have been coaching at the elite level have been there for a while. And so, how much of that can you really remove? How much of that is implicated? Is it just going to be kind of like a bunch of culture and ethics training work? Although every coach in Canada has to take ethics training. I took it. Making ethical decisions clearly did not work in this case, but I don't really know what it looks like.
Yeah, I
No
wish yeah, I wish I had an answer to that as well because I mean that's kind of been the question in the past 48 hours and it just gets harder and harder figuring out how does this program recover from it because it seems like a very, very big hit. Bev Priestman has gone from hero to zero in a matter of 2 days. So that is a title and a name that I think is gonna follow her. AC, I know this was not a pleasant conversation, so thank you so much for joining me to talk about this. I know you're going to be on top of this. You are also going to be detailing this scandal in a much bigger detail on your newsletter. Where can people follow and continue to stay updated on what seems to be a very long, long process with a lot of investigations to come out?
Yeah, I might have to take it offline for a bit because, like, honestly, this has been a little too much. But yeah, if you want to find me, wsoccer.ca on social media and on the website. I might be busy, like, just being upset for a couple days, but I'll check back in with you guys. I'm hosting the Peaches watch party with AFC Toronto on Sunday, so we'll see what the vibes are like.
Mhm.
Yeah, come chat with me there if you're coming, but I might just take a sec.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair to take a sec. In fact, actually, I took a nap today after 50 hours of talking about this to pretty much everybody and like a few other radio stations. And then the first thing I see when I wake up from my nap is this. So looks like we
Shoot,
cannot
you don't get rest.
looks like we cannot escape this. Unfortunately, Canada Soccer has us busy. And actually, I mean, this is kind of like a now behind the scenes question. I kind of felt like I felt shameful because I'm like, have I been covering cheated football for the past however many years?
I mean, we've all been covering cheated football for ever many years. Like
It,
it truly is the nature of sport, like not an excuse at all.
oh
But
no, yeah.
I think the ironic thing is like the results are not always there still, right? Like how much of an edge are you getting? Like we cheated all throughout the Women's World Cup. How did that go, right? Like it's just so it seems so nonsensical. There's enough film that exists on these teams and they're not going to throw anything that crazy at you
Mm-mm.
and we still conceded on a set piece. So like
I guess
why?
they didn't get enough drone footage. I think maybe Lombardi's
Yeah,
footage
they only
was
got 5 minutes, I heard. Oh, okay.
they were they were even
Seems a little harsh over
already.
5 minutes. No, it really isn't.